Hi, everyone. Okay, well, Jordy already kicked us off. We were chatting yesterday, preparing for this
Yes.
chat, and I think it would be great if you could give kind of an overview of what you do, because it's very interesting, and I think it intersects a lot of different business models, which we'll get into in the conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Cathy. Our team is really interesting. Obviously, Sony has a long history in the audio space. I mean, everyone knows their Walkman. Everyone has seen different creators using headphones over the years, microphones. Our team's an extension of that core business unit in Japan that looks after consumer audio, professional audio. But our team was actually created 5 years ago. Historically, when you look at the structure of kind of this business unit in Sony, you have a core business unit in Japan that does R&D, development, etc. And then you have sales and marketing teams to promote the products, sell the products in different regions. The Tokyo team realized, hey, we're actually missing that key element of global brand. We're missing key elements of how we're innovating on the front lines with creators, and we're missing out on unique business opportunities. So we created this kind of personal entertainment business extension here in the United States. And our team looks after brand, business development, partner marketing, strategy. We work with creators on the technical side. We are involved in product planning. We're involved in business development partnerships. We are developing brand campaigns. We're going to market, and everything in between. So it's interesting to kind of own end to end. It's very unique and rare. It's not without challenges, based
Which
on
we will get into.
Which we'll get into from a cross-functionality standpoint. But I guess as a marketer at the core, because I mean we're all marketers here, it puts, it's one thing to have creative storytelling. It's another thing to be able to back that up with tangible, I'm going to show you how I do this backed with the tech, right? And to be able to develop that and reverse engineer it into marketing campaigns is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I was fascinated because you're basically building things from scratch, finding the opportunity, and like you said, backing it out. I think it would be helpful for people to maybe talk about an example you mentioned, Olivia Rodrigo. So if you want to touch upon what you did on that project.
Yeah, so we have a partnership with Olivia Rodrigo right now. We actually formed that almost 2 years ago. So it's not like we just jumped on the bandwagon, maybe a little after the first bandwagon. I'll admit that. The concept was custom headphone, right? Okay, people have done it. It's not so interesting. But with that, we actually wanted to take it a step deeper to how does the product actually change the experience for the customer with her music. So we actually developed something called custom EQ. And the idea is every pair of headphones has a different acoustical property. What if the artist or creator listens to their music based on the acoustical properties of the headphone they're collaborating with us on, and people who buy that can actually experience it optimally for general ears, curated by Olivia and her producer who did the album. And that was actually something we built into the software, the UX. So we captured the EQ. We have a headphone connect app that is kind of a companion software with our headphones, and we program presets for shower cuts, and fans could experience it that way. And that's something that takes much deeper than just an artist saying, hey, I got paid a lot of money to promote this product. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So with that, and I think this will be relevant to a lot of the brand marketers in the room, how do you get that pushed through? In a large, corporation that's been around for a long time and has its own kind of global brand image, and you're kind of just a scrappy new team, and you're like, hey, we have this idea. I would love for you to kind of walk through like the challenges of how to get stuff done, and then any tips.
I mean, I can't stray away from the exec support. Obviously, without that, you can't. So that is one piece that you're going to have to get to. But after that, it's not enough to have just an executive supporting it, because there are teams that, cross-functionally, you have product planning teams, business teams, local area marketing teams, global central brand teams, right? Teams that manage supply chains, everyone, media teams, everyone in between has to get behind it. I think, what's interesting is, especially like when you go in-house, and I'm sure like other, in-house marketers, brand side marketers can totally relate. When you first get the job, you're like, okay, I don't have to sell. But there's so much selling involved, but it's actually interesting. It's not selling, it's actually passive selling in listening. And what we did to get to this place to be able to execute that was a lot of listening to these cross-functional teams to understand how they work, what their pain points are, what their challenges are, and then collectively, collaboratively solve with them. We were not going in with fixed agendas. We couldn't. I mean, if we were just pushing it on them, it would be impossible. But especially considering a lot of these teams for us are Japanese teams. So culturally, then you have a whole nother component to how you're navigating getting things done. But it is a lot of listening and trying to adapt workflow. And it's far from perfect. I mean, we're, really, even though the team's been created or was created 5 years ago, we've only really been ramping up in this space for maybe 2.5 years. And we've learned a lot from it. And with each project, it's those key learnings, too, that we're really honing in on it. And most of them are internal, actually.
Like you knew what I was going to ask you. So what was the difference between the first 2 years, minus like you're the first hire and you were the only person on the team, and then that marker where like, okay, now this is a real thing, this is accelerating. So if you can touch upon kind of like the before and after.
I mean, there are the surface level changes. You have more staff, more budget, more responsibility, more KPIs. That's all fine. I'd say the process that comes along with that in order to get things done in a way that is inclusive within the organization significantly changes from, the upstart, right? Because with all that, you have to, I mean, think of Sony. It's a, company with decades and decades of history, and, an area of the company that has done things a certain way for a very long time. It's not even like a PlayStation that has only been around for, 30 plus years, right? I mean, the audio business, transistor radios back in, the 60s, obviously supply chain evolved a little bit since then. But yeah, it's really just those process elements that ultimately kind of shape how we work in a way that we didn't, and still need to evolve.
So being nimble, basically, with your team, but also lots of communication.
It's openness. It's really openness at the end of the day, because each team has their own process. Product planning team, and then again, the cultural element. You have Tokyo product planning members, you have US product planning members, Tokyo BU, US local area BU. So with every team, there's the juxtaposition of the cultural differences, and then you have the actual functions of those teams and process for those teams. So just being open.
Question, how long did it take for the Olivia Rodrigo thing from start to finish?
From ideation to execution. Like execution going to market, or execution like starting planning?
Planning, and then, I guess to planning, because at that point everything's proved.
Conversation took place around this time 2 years ago. We had our first meeting with her 2.5 months later.
Oh, wow, that's fast.
Yeah, and then go to market. So she released Guts September 2023. We were in planning phase in February 2023. She was still working on the album.
Wow, all right.
So we got in early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You touched upon Sony obviously being a very long legacy brand. So how do you manage continuing the Sony brand messaging across all these like kind of new initiatives? Because you're a disruptor basically within the company, right? You're finding these little pockets of creating these experiences, finding like, oh, this might be a new revenue stream, this might be, and it's pushing the limits in terms of what's actually existing. So I'm curious, how do you balance like new, maybe crazy out there, but also keep that Sony global brand messaging?
It's kind of a paradox actually, because even though we're thinking ahead, we're often looking towards the past to think ahead. And other teams, maybe Tokyo, for example, might say, oh, let's really think forward. And there's a lot of sensitivity. I mean, when you have a brand like the Walkman, right? Where does that live in the culture now? If it should live in the culture now in some way. Because right now it's kind of like almost urban legend. But you'd be surprised how many partner brands, other folks call us and talk to us, artists. There are two kind of products everyone wants. There's one product that's a $15,000 professional audio microphone that's hand-assembled, that's on back order for 2 years, that's the microphone of choice by Dr. Dre, Rihanna, Kanye West, Justin Bieber. That one people call about, like artists, I'll do whatever substitute you want if I can get, this microphone. And I've been to the factory. Literally, they make, less than 30 a month. There's a single factory. And then the other is a Walkman. Tons of artists love the legacy around it. And, with kind of where trends are going right now, you'd be surprised how often we're constantly considering where should that brand sit, where should that product sit, are there innovative ways to open that up in different ways. Believe it or not, there still is a Walkman that is sold. It's an glorified MP3 player. It's a $5,000, brick. But it's interesting. We actually seeded that with some artists, and this is funny. We gave it to one artist, a very well-known major label artist. First of all, he's maybe like 30 years old. He thought it was like a hard drive. And he's like, what is this? It's actually on social. We gave it a little Uzi Vert. You can find it on social. He's like, what is this? Like studying it, like it's some ancient artifact, even though it's like, but
Your hand in floppy disks.
Yeah, floppy disks and mid disks. Yeah. We did not realize that. So we gave it to him. Yada yada, it's fine. Called us back and said, "Yo, there's like some interesting things that we could do from a music creation standpoint. There's things that we've been trying to do that are programmed into the software that we're actually using for music creation. Did you guys know it?" And we said, "Actually, we didn't know it." So there are things like that, and that's where it comes back to kind of the creator and fan, because unlike other brands in our space, we have to think about both constituencies. It's maybe like similarly to how certain brands have their B2B and B2C kind of their focus. We have that, but with creators and fans. And then how do those two connect? So we're constantly kind of straddling those lines.
I feel like anything with influencers, because it's a whole other personality brand.
I mean, the term creator, depending on who you talk to, like if it's a local area marketing, like influencer. If it's a Tokyo R&D team, music creator. So creator has a different meaning in that case, and then it's like prosumers that are really, influencers, but more than just influencers are actually creating too, but then they're also buying consumer products. So you have this kind of like white space a little bit for the future of market.
Where do you see your, department, your SWAT team, as you like to call them, in the next 3 to 5 years? Is there anything interesting you could share?
I mean, there are some spaces for sure. We are very focused on next generation. So how we're looking at enabling future creators is one area of real interest for us. Co-creation is another area. When you're working, like there's this feedback loop. When you're working with these next generation creators, you kind of understand their needs, and then you can iterate. And that's where it comes down to, like what we talked about in the beginning, where if you're getting the feedback, shaping the market tangibly, and then serving that market from a product standpoint, and then you can market to that market. It's just a very different way of thinking about marketing that kind of puts the business side almost ahead to an extent of the actual creative.
Yeah, I don't know how much time we have left.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Oh.
8 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Cool. All right. So, it's like there's no clock. So, I think it's interesting. I think maybe diving a little bit deeper into the business aspect of it, and then how it, eventually ties into creative. Because I think a lot of marketers in here kind of start with the messaging, the creative. Like how do we get this to market? And you're, obviously reverse engineering it.
Yeah.
But also just, it's almost like you're kind of trying to future-proof Sony as well, like finding these pockets of opportunity that didn't exist anymore in terms of revenue.
Yeah, it's actually looking at business problems that are ahead. So, like, if you look at, I think the issue is you look at the state of the market now, what's doing well, where are the weak spots, where are the risks in 3 to 5 years, but then where's the opportunity, and then from there it's, we are considering how to basically create these new structures that not, solely live in the products that we're coming to market with. There are teams that already do that, right? I mean, I guess what's interesting with our team is we do have the luxury of thinking ahead while other teams are taking care of the now. So, there's always going to be a team that thinks about the next generation of noise-canceling headphones or the next generation of buds, right? When you don't have that day-to-day responsibility and leadership is saying, hey, how are we growing the brand? How are we growing the business? How are we looking at where the weak spots are for our existing business? How are we looking at opportunities? But I guess the challenge is how you balance the relationship and the correlation between the now and the future is actually an ever-evolving struggle internally in terms of prioritization. So, you're going to have teams that say, actually we can't do X, Y, and Z from a development standpoint because, if we don't ship, these other features for this product that's going to market then, we're screwed. But that can relate to other partnerships that actually address future markets, and then how you kind of triage, how you listen, it's compromise. At the end of the day, you're not going to get everything you want, and you also need to know, you're getting your revenue from your core business right now, right? So we're very careful at respecting the core business, not disrupting it too much, but evolving it in a way that augments it rather than tries to cannibalize or pull the plug or anything like that. It's a very, very delicate balance.
I was going to ask, what is you have your base, right? And then usually they say at least 10% of your budget should be innovation or trying new things. Is that kind of where you guys sit within?
It's mixed because it's intertwined, right? So like it's never siloed. It's not like we're working on a single project that is just so removed from the base. Again, it's augmented, right? So what we do sometimes is on the R&D side. We see these things and actually this has application now. So what was supposed to be like a R&D future innovation thing becomes hey, we're going to build this in, like a custom EQ, right? Where like we thought initially maybe that would have been like a year or two down the road, and we would scale it, but it evolves quickly, and we're like, hey, it's a great opportunity for a POC. We're going to try this. We're going to bring it to market. And by the way, like I guess like bringing it back home to an extent, that became without that core message for the Olivia headphone, it just would have been another big brand works with big artists, creates custom product, it's cosmetic, blah blah blah, and that's not very interesting.
Yeah. So creatively, I think innovation-wise, like, what are you interested in? Like for future, or just if the opportunity kind of crossed your desk, like what's in the market now or in the market coming out that your team is looking into?
We're really interested in the convergence of pro to consumer. And we've talked about this pretty publicly and openly. There's a lot of tech that we have and only we have that's 100% proprietary to us because of the businesses or business that we have, that there are unique opportunities to scale it. Like for example, we have one thing on virtual mixing that for a creator puts them in a room without them being in that room. So like, for example, we take a producer who is on the other side of the world, but they need to hear a mix as though they're in that room. We have technology that does that in headphones. How does that relate to fans? Things like that. We have a list of examples of, we could go through where, it's serving creator needs, but has fan application. And then that changes product experience, and then that changes our brand positioning, and that changes how we market. So you see how it's it's different kind of funnel, I guess.
Yeah, so it's almost a trickle down of creating a whole new audience base.
Based on experience. Product experience, but also value proposition of the tech that you're actually building for one constituency that actually has a relationship with the other constituency because they're creating music for the fans.
Which is very fun.
It's fun, not without challenges.
Anything fun has always been challenging. So.
But yeah, it's eye-opening and it's ever evolving too, because this development is happening in real time. But again, another space we're really interested in is next gen, because we do see a significant opportunity in their core professionals, their fans. But there's a lot more of the in-between now, and it's an underserved market.
Yeah. I think we're almost time, but I feel like I have to ask about AI, because everyone's probably going to ask about AI. Are you guys dabbling in it, or have you been thinking about how to integrate it within, because obviously now you have basically your hands in all the cookie jars, right? So what aspect is that kind of changing?
It's supportive and not generative. Obviously, we as Sony overall need to be quite careful about that. We are a company that's focused on creators, whether it's gaming developers, music creators, filmmakers, and it's all about core human intellectual property and not, something that we're trying to replace. But we are constantly, as a company, and even for our business unit, thinking about the assistive, nature of it. So, for example, what we do, we have one tool that is sound separation. So, if you're a music creator and you have old content that you don't have the individual sounds, how can AI actually separate those sounds for you We have some leading technology in that space. We have deployed it, go to market. We've been very careful about it, but it's a great example of assistive AI that supports a human creating versus completely generative, and that's quite a policy
I love that
across
policy.
the entire
This is
company.
not doomsday.
Because we're as a company, we are a creative company. We have intellectual property. We support creators. There are a lot of humans creating a lot of human things in
And
this
you're
company.
finding that white space of those in-between creators that hopefully will be, make
Exactly.
beautiful art.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Cathy.
Jordy could talk about this all day, and
I could.
it's very interesting if you dive deep, especially when talking about collaborating with different units and trying to get things through. So I feel like, a lot of brand marketers, that's a big challenge internally. So hit them up afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much.